1 gigawatts. Great Scott!
Shall we play a game?
Would you like a jelly baby?
Engage auto systems.
Aye. Engaged.
Clear all moorings.
Cleared, sir.
1/4 impulse power.
You know how to fly, don't you?
No. Do you?
You shall not pass!
Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
Down here, it's our time. It's our time down here.
The Force will be with you, always.
Hi, and welcome to the Geek Hangout podcast. My name is Mark, and I am joined tonight, as always, by my very good friend and a co-host, Grant. How you doing tonight, Grant?
Hey, Mark. I'm doing great. Hope you're doing well. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. This is episode 53 of the
53.
So we're cruising right along here. Lots of little bits and pieces of news tonight to talk about. And as always, we'll start things out. What's been going on with you, Mark? How are things going? What's new?
What is new? So, well, all right. So this is, do you like this little thing? I thought
I like this.
Yeah, I'm gonna check. If you're watching on YouTube, we have a YouTube deck. If you're just listening to the podcast, that's fine. But we're on YouTube too. And I'm trying different things, trying to be creative.
Still up that says, "What have the geeks been up to?"
So, what have the geeks been up to? So, whoops. There we go. All right. So this is my big exciting news: is that I have been playing Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds, and I am pleased to report that this week, just a few days ago, over the weekend, I finished it. I'm very excited.
Very nice.
Yeah, so that is my second Zelda game. This was a lot of fun. It was very much like the first one I finished, which was A Link to the Past. But but I was
A Link Between Worlds. Okay,
A Link Between Worlds, right? So this was really cool. I really enjoyed it. It didn't take me nearly as long. I think I started playing in May, and I'm playing like a few hours a week, for the most part. So I think I started playing in May, and I got through this just last week. So it took me about 4 months. But for me, I think that's pretty good.
Not bad, right?
Because I go for a stretch where I don't play for a week, because I don't have any time, and then I go back to it and everything like that. But so finish that up. So I'm going to continue my Zelda kick here, and I'm going to start. I just started playing Legend of Zelda: Skyward Sword, which they've just recently re-released on Switch. Like you can, but it was originally a Wii game, because it had, and so you played it with the motion controllers.
Yes, right.
So it sort of fits Switch well because you can use the Joy-Cons for it.
Yeah.
But I have it on Wii, and I have a working Wii console, so that's what I'm playing it on. I figure I'm not going to go out and buy the new one if I've got it. So
now, maybe I missed this part, but are you playing them in order? Like,
No.
No. Okay.
Yeah, because to play them in order, there's a ridiculous number of them.
Okay. You're just playing basically the ones you like, or the ones.
Right. Well, Skyward Sword I'm playing because, all right. So Breath of the Wild is the Switch for Legend of Zelda game. It came out on launch, and that's I started playing that, and then I dropped off.
Okay.
And Breath of the Wild 2 is coming out sometime next year, and there's a reason. Everybody sort of thinks that there's a reason Nintendo released the HD version of Skyward Sword on Switch before Breath of the Wild 2 comes out, because they think it's going to relate somehow.
Tie them together somehow.
Right. So that's why I was like, all right, I'm going to play Skyward Sword. Right. I'm going to try to get through that, and then I'm going to play Breath of the Wild, and then I should be ready for Breath of the Wild 2. That's my plan. All right. So we'll see if that works out. But so that's the one thing I've been up to. I was very excited about that starting the new game.
That's cool.
Yeah, and then the other thing is the other thing I wanted to talk about was because last time we talked about my little R2 unit, and I was trying to show it. It wasn't working real well because of the virtual background and everything. But I actually recorded it today, so you can kind of see what it does. And and I don't know, like it's making the noise. You probably can't hear it, but that's
I get I can't hear it, but I watched it beforehand.
Yeah.
But
so I just wanted to just real quick to kind of show you what it does. And like I really like this thing. I still think if you got to choose between, if you go to Galaxy's Edge and you got to choose between one of these and the lightsaber, I'm going here every time.
This thing, this is definitely pretty neat, like to play with and everything like that. I mean, like we were kind of saying last time, the lightsaber is cool and the experience might be cool, but I mean, once you get home, I mean, I don't think they're sturdy enough to you can't really like bash them into each other. So it's like it's
right.
It's like a glorified wall decoration. I mean,
exactly, and it
play with it and have it roll around. And you said there's an add-on, they different add-ons and stuff.
Yeah, I really like this thing, and so I just wanted to share that because I think it's pretty cool. The other thing is, and I don't think I mentioned this the last time, but we finally got to Ogre's Cantina this past trip.
Oh, right,
I don't think I mentioned it the last time.
I don't know. I don't think we didn't talk about it. I saw from your pictures and stuff.
Yeah.
I forgot to talk to you about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really cool. Ogre's Cantina is really neat. I still don't understand why they made that place so small. That doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah, that's it, right? I think we had talked about this at a different time, but isn't there space behind it, or isn't there another location or something you think they might expand it to?
I heard. Well, see now everything, because we're gonna get into this with the Galactic Star Cruiser in a few minutes, but like, I've heard there's an expansion pad, and where they can build something else for Galaxy's Edge. Whether they will or not, I don't know, because I think a lot of resources are going to this Star Cruiser. But we're gonna get. I'll give you my thoughts on the Star Cruiser in a bit, but like this, I think you'll probably be able to see this. This is I got this at Ogre's Cantina. I forget what kind of drink it was, but this is like when it, like, you can see the.
It was like a tiki mug.
Yeah, it's like a tiki mug.
Yeah. Okay.
And look, there's a little Ewok on it.
Oh, I see it there. Yeah.
If you're watching the YouTube channel, I'm showing that there's the Death Star.
There, right? Okay.
Cool. Yeah, and it's kind of like the Battle of Endor.
Oh, there's it, right? Skywalker and stuff. Okay, right. Yeah.
So I got that.
That's cool.
That's pretty cool. And then we got this sipper cup,
Oh.
which is this you can't see because it's green. It's green. So it's not showing up. But it's like Jabba's. That thing.
His hookah pipe.
Yeah, where he has the. Yeah, you can't see because it's all.
Yeah.
But it's got like a little frog in it.
Oh, so and what? There's a drink inside of that.
Yeah, so you put a drink in here, and I mean this was for the kids, right? Like there was like a kids drink in here.
Yeah.
But I thought this was pretty cool.
You're like, that's mine.
Yeah. So the kids got it, but I was like, I'm gonna be, if you're not gonna use that, I'm putting it in my office.
Yeah, that's going in my collection.
So so I just wanted, because I forgot to mention the last time about Ogre's Cantina. It's really neat. I mean, they have Rex in there, and he's doing the music and everything.
Yeah, I thought that was cool that they brought him back for that.
Yeah, and it really is neat. I mean, it does. They have like the dispensers that look like the IG-88 head, and it's just they do a nice job with it.
It is funny, like you said, that Disney's usually so good with that stuff, and it's so funny that of all the things they underestimated that, who doesn't want to go into the cantina, even if it's not the cantina, you're going to go to a Star Wars bar, of course you want to go in there.
It was the most, in my view, the most short-sighted thing they did for Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I just don't understand.
Unless there was a question of, it wasn't, because in Disney World you can't, where was
Disneyland, you can't have
alcohol.
You can't have alcohol. But I think even that has changed now.
Okay, I remember, and I remember one of the parks. I remember it being a big deal. They're like, "Oh, you're going to be allowed to have drinks, like alcohol," and so it was Disneyland then. Okay,
right. And in Disney World, it was similar, you could, but it was only in the Magic Kingdom. You couldn't get alcoholic beverages in the Magic Kingdom. But but that has changed now too. Like you could always get them in Hollywood Studios.
Right. Okay. Right. And obviously, Epcot. I mean, that's what
right.
people do. That's like
right. Exactly. So, yeah, it was a neat experience, and I forgot to talk about it last time, so I wanted to mention it this time.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
But I think that wraps up everything for me. What I've been up to. What have you been up to?
So you gotta hit the next slide here, and then I'll. I think so. I got so basically I have a friend that lives in Australia whose name happens to also be Mark, but I have a thing with him where like he'll buy stuff in the USA and he has it shipped to me, and then I package it all up and send it to him.
Okay.
Saves him on shipping and everything, right? Shipping to Australia. So I get talking to him and stuff, and he's a Star Wars guy, and I'm a Star Wars guy, like you and stuff. But he has a big collection, and he's buying more like Clone Wars and more newer stuff.
Okay.
So I'm paying to send him the stuff. And the first round we did, he obviously reimbursed me and he gives me a commission and all that stuff. But then we get talking and he's like, "What are you looking for collection wise?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm still looking for," and the picture I have up here is the sonic controlled land speeder. I still need one of these. And he's like, "Well, guess what?"
And this is circa 1980.
This was 1978.
Oh, 1978. Okay.
So this is one of the first wave, maybe 79. But it was like one of the first toys that came out for Star Wars, and it was exclusive to JCPenney's.
Okay.
Right? So the regular land speeder we all had was just manual. You just pushed it around, had the little lever for the wheels and stuff. Whereas this one is remote control. So like, there's a switch. It's electronic. You turn it on, the motor runs, and then there's an R2D2. So it's not really remote or radio controlled. There's a little microphone in that back engine. And when you press the clicker, it makes this very loud like click. It's like this very loud noise, and the microphone picks it up, and whatever it does, it knows, and it makes the engine go the different direction, and then it makes a turn basically.
Cool.
It goes around. It's not working right now. I have to take it apart and fool with it and get it running, which I enjoy doing that. But so I never had this. As kids, I didn't. I don't think I even knew this existed until much later down the road, and it's more expensive just because you find it doesn't work or there's a lot of pieces missing or whatever.
Right.
So I never and I had the other regular ones. I'm like, whatever, I'll never get it. So he sent this over, and he actually has a box too, which I don't have any boxes. So this is my first piece that I have a box for.
Oh, okay.
So, but I have to take it apart, and here I'm going to go out of frame for 1 second.
Okay.
Sorry, probably should have had this pre-done, but so here it is.
That's cool.
And then there's like
is it about the same size as the?
It's actually bigger. It's actually bigger. So the other one's behind me. I'm not gonna get up and get it, but like if I show my hands here, like what I mean, it's actually thicker and it's a little bit bigger and stuff like that.
It looks thicker. Yeah.
I always thought it was in pictures and stuff before I had it. I always thought it was what do you call it? I always thought it was the same shell. Hold on. Sorry. I'm wired. I can't.
Right.
But I always thought it was the same shell with just different electronics inside, but no, it's totally different. So.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I think I knew this existed. Like, I think I remember it when we were kids. Like, I remember seeing it.
Oh, that's funny.
I don't think I ever asked for it for one reason or another, but I think I remember. I think I remember it existed.
Okay. I think I don't know if I remember it existing. I remember finding out about it later, like what's that, and then realizing what it was. Now I don't know if it was something that because it came out so early that I was a kid and I just didn't realize it,
Right.
Those remote control that I should probably look it up. I don't know how expensive it was back then. You know what I mean? Because like a remote, even if it's sonic or sound control or whatever it is, it was probably more expensive than just the standard TIE fighter or X-wing that we had, stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, because I didn't have this and I didn't have their remote control sand crawler, and I was lucky enough. I did have quite a bit of other stuff, so I'm always like, wonder whether that was just too expensive or if it was just not on the radar at the time just because it came out so early. Maybe I'm not sure what it was. So anyway, so that was the first piece I got, and so then go to the next slide, if you will. And so this is a bit of a setup. So now that's one of the first pieces that came out. Now I'm going to go to the opposite end of the collection, and this is 1985 when everything is dying off. Star
Right,
Wars,
right.
as far as it's dying off, and so the very last couple of things, one of the last ones I got was the Tatooine skiff, which you can sort of see in the
Yeah, I remember that.
yeah, and so that was one of the last ones. I got that, and then up above you can see the Ewok battle wagon. I had both of those, right?
Right.
And so, but it came with these planetary map things. And I remember looking at this planetary map and I'm going through and I'm like, oh, I have this, I don't have this. But there's a few other pieces on here that are rare because it's at the very end of the line, and also rare because people were much more interested in the skiff and or like, you know, some of the newer like the A-wing or things that were actually in the movie.
Right.
So I ended up getting the go to the next slide, please. And I ended up getting, so this is called the ATL Interceptor. And this was basically, it came out in packaging for the Droids cartoon.
Okay.
But this came out, and so this is like, it's like a little mini rig. It's funny. I always thought from the pictures, I always thought it was like, I can't get to it now. I always thought it was big, and here it's like a mini rig. It's like, you know, like one guy fits. That's it. It's very tiny.
I remember these being in the store, and like
okay.
I remember like had no interest in the mini rigs. Like
yeah, you know. I didn't never realize this qualified as a mini rig. I thought this was a bigger ship type thing, but yeah, no, it's a mini rig. It's tiny.
Okay.
So, but yeah, so this was all packaged in the droids packaging and stuff like that. So, but I do remember it for whatever reason I thought it was neat. And so, remember in the Solo movie, they had that one ship that came down and like grabbed the Scout Walker and like dropped it off.
Yes.
Right. So it's not the same ship, but that's instantly what I thought of when I saw that sequence. I'm like,
okay,
was that one of those droids? You know, the ship. But it does make an appearance in the Droids cartoon, which is now on Disney Plus. I do remember seeing it in there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I got this, and then you go to the next frame, and then there's these things. These pictures here, these are called body rigs. So they're not mini rigs; they're even smaller and cheaper. They're body rigs, right? And if
these I don't. The only one I sort of remember the sand skimmer thing.
Yeah, right. So there was 3 of them, and I got 2. I got the sand skimmer, and I got the security scout. Now the Imperial sniper is the 3rd one. That one is still elusive, and that one's the hardest one to find.
Okay.
So I got these first 2. And they're the sand skimmer is in excellent condition. The security scout has the one little belt that goes around Luke is broken, but it's functional. But it's so you know, I have to see if I can eventually come across a replacement. Maybe. I'm not sure if I care about it that much.
right.
But so anyway, so the opportunity presented itself. I had no intention of getting any of this stuff. And then I stumbled upon, I showed it last time or 2 times ago, that the side gunner from Droids, and I found that on eBay for really cheap, and I'm like, oh well, let me grab this. And then I got talking to my friend Mark, I call him Australian Mark, and I got talking to him about these other things, and I'm like, well, okay, let's do it, let's go. So as it is now, I need the, as pictured on the screen, I need that Imperial sniper still.
Okay.
And I need I still need the remote control sandcrawler, so that's very expensive, and the remote control and getting all the pieces to that, and I still need to grab that if I want to have the original. I have the one they did one in 2004 that's I'm looking at it right now. It's like has a modern paint job and no electronics, so I do have that version of it, but now that I've gotten this stuff, I'm like, well, I think I'm gonna have to suck it up.
And the sand crawler, I definitely remember. I definitely remember the remote control sand crawler, because I do think it was because I never even had a regular land speeder. Oh, do you remember that? Like my land speeder that I have still, you bought for me for like a birthday.
I remember that.
Yeah, and it was like they re-released it at the end.
JC Penney in 83, they did it was a collector's edition, and they did this land speeder, they did Darth Vader's TIE fighter, and they did the Dewback. They released
okay, right.
And I remember because I remember getting you the land speeder, and I got another one because I have 2. I've actually have 2 of those. I have the original one that I had, then I remember getting another one because as kids, I remember being like, well, we want them to have car chases, like chase each other, you know?
Yeah.
we one vehicle.
Yeah, so I don't know, like it's so strange because it's like I don't remember why, like you're saying, like I don't know why I wouldn't have gotten a land or wouldn't have asked for a land speeder. Maybe they just never got one for me.
Right.
You know?
I mean, got trashed or broken somewhere along the
Yeah.
way. You know, I mean, I know mine when I took everything out of storage. In my head, I'm like, oh, I took really good care of my toys, and I'm taking things out. I'm like, my God, this stuff is trashed. Like, you know,
Yeah.
like I think everything's broken. Like I had to, hunt down pieces and parts, and
my my land speeder is one of the items that's still in really good shape because I got it so late.
Right, so in the run, right?
Yeah, so that piece is actually still in really good shape.
That's so funny.
So anyway.
But so anyway, so that's what I've been up to, just collection wise. Like I said, I didn't expect it, and it happened, and so here I am now. My collection, the value jumped quite a bit with these last few pieces because these are the ones that are hard to get. So
that's really cool.
Yeah, I'm excited about it.
Excellent.
So yeah, that about wraps it up for me. I don't think I made that picture, do I? My phone died.
No. I think we're ready to go. We're just going to go into Star Wars news if you're all set.
Speaking of Star Wars,
yes.
There we go.
Yeah. So this is what like the big news over the last couple of weeks was Disney released a bunch of information about this Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser that they've been talking about that's going to be in Orlando at Hollywood Studios. So we finally got some. I mean, we've been hearing dribs and drabs of information and everything, but we really haven't gotten any concrete information. Yeah. And I think like the week before they released all this information, they released a video of like the Imagineers talking about it.
Okay.
About what was going to happen on the Galactic Star Cruiser, and I really think that that video was intended to soften the blow. Right? That's what I think. Because it was like I think that video was designed to get you all excited and be like, oh my God, I got to do this Galactic Star Cruiser thing, and then they dropped the prices and stuff. So this is what the Galactic, the Halcyon, this is what it's supposed to look like.
Okay.
But these are the prices.
All right.
And this was sort of like, I mean, everybody knew this thing was going to be expensive. I was not expecting how expensive it was.
Right.
And this is, to be clear, this is a standard room, right? Like a standard cabin. They are sort of structuring this like a cruise.
Okay.
So this would be like a very basic cabin on a cruise, right? Like nothing fancy, right?
This is just run of the mill
cabin.
Okay.
Right. Now, if you can do more than this, right? Like they have cabins that are more expensive than this, but this is just standard. Okay. And so for us, like for my family, we're a family of 4. If we want to do this, we're looking at $6,000 for two nights. And it's we were saying before, it's really not even 2 days. It's actually like 45 hours or something like that, because you check in at 4 and you check out at like by 11 or something like that. So it's not even a real like a full 2 days. And
what's funny is I've looked at this a few times and I never actually like really looked at it. And
yeah,
it's grand for 4 people. That because my family's the same way. I mean, you could go on the whole trip for $6,000.
Yeah, you can go on a cruise for that. You can go on a Disney cruise for that. Disney cruises aren't cheap, Wow. Yeah, it's. I mean, I expected it to be expensive. I did not expect it to be this expensive, Yeah. And now, I mean, what's included is, I mean, basically, this is not like, I mean, we're saying it's sort of priced like a cruise, and it is, but it's not like a cruise, because what they have is actually, you have an itinerary, and I know it's hard to see because it's kind of in this slide, but I'll kind of explain it. Here, I have to get to I should have this up already, but it's like basically they have the days that you're there, they have like an itinerary for you, and it's, where you have to be and what you have to do at certain times,
Right.
and and it's like a whole itinerary. So
Here, I'm trying to call up my thing now. Here we go.
Oh, that's not what I meant to do. So you eat dinner at a certain time.
Right. Well, so, like in that sense, it is like a cruise, but like here, day one, arrive at the terminal 1 o'clock, and
Right.
launch Star Cruiser. So I guess the shuttle from the entry point to the thing is going to be like a Star Cruiser, but it's essentially a bus, right? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I know isn't it like designed in a tunnel or something like?
Yeah, it's going to be like a. The thing is, like, from the moment you get on the, like, and I think you even have valet parking, so it's supposed to be like you get out of your car, you go into like a terminal,
right,
and then from that point on, you're on this Star Cruiser, and you're supposed to be totally immersed,
right, okay,
in the adventure, right? And so you get on a shuttle, like there is a shuttle that will take you from the terminal to the ship,
right,
and it's going to be. I'm actually curious to see how it's going to look, because it's going to be probably something like. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be, the technology is going to be a bit better, but it's probably going to be something like what they have at Universal when on the train between the two Harry Potter lands, right? Because you get on the Hogwarts Express, and it's and there's things happening at the window that make you feel like you're heading to Hogwarts and that kind of thing.
Oh, okay, I see.
And I suspect it's going to be something like that, but I'm sure the technology is going to be a lot better.
Right.
But that's kind of what you're looking at.
Okay.
And and then from that point on, you're on this adventure, and they're going to try to totally immerse you in the ship. So like, you get to the Star Cruiser, there's an orientation of the ship, there's some refreshments, they give you sabacc lessons. I mean, you go to the captain's reception, you go to dinner, it's and then the next day, that's like one day. And then
your unexpected story moment.
Right. And I think, and I was kind of talking to Grant about this before. If you've ever heard of Tony and Tina's Wedding, this is how I'm picturing it in my mind. I've never been to Tony and Tina's Wedding. It's like a show in New York that I remember. I remember it being big when I was in college.
Yeah.
And it was basically like you're going to a wedding of a family, of somebody, right? And it's not like a theater show. It's not like you sit down in a seat and you watch the show on stage. It's like you go to the wedding and you're part of the show, right? Like, all these things are happening, and you're interacting with, like, people who are members of the wedding party,
right?
And you're just there as a guest, right? And all these things are sort of happening around you, right? And there's a story there somewhere, but it's not like you're not getting every single piece of the story unless you talk to every single one of the actors, right?
Right.
And
what's that called? It's not.
It's like environmental theater, I think it's called.
Yeah, I think that. Yes. Okay. Right.
And in my mind, now I don't know that that's what this is, but in my mind, that's the framework I'm putting around it, right? That it's sort of like Tony and Tina's Wedding, only 2 days long. Right. And I think that's kind of what it sounds like to me. And so
I thought that was a good analogy, because I think that's what it seems like, because throughout the itinerary here, there's like, unexpected story moments. So I guess that's when I assume actors will be throughout all your stuff, but I guess that's when they sort of, swarm.
right.
I guess really out in full force, because that's like, designated story time, basically.
Right. And it's like, and from what I understand, it's like you could run into a rebel who's trying to smuggle some. He might ask you to carry something, and he might be trying to smuggle somebody on board the ship,
Okay.
or packages or something, and you have to choose whether or not you're going to help him or not. And if you don't help him, he'll probably go ask somebody else if it could help him. Then if they help him, then if you do help him, then that will impact things that happen the rest of the time you're there.
Okay.
Because if you help this rebel smuggle somebody on board the ship, then they're going to be in your debt and they might help you. But also, there's going to be Imperials around, so you might get busted and like thrown in the brig or something like that. Like it's this kind of stuff, right? Like no, I mean, we won't know for sure what they're going to do until it's done, but it's that kind of thing, right?
Yeah. Right.
And
I mean, it sounds like it could be. It depends. I mean, if you're a fan of environmental theater, I guess it could be a lot of fun, and if you're into that. But at the same time, if you're like, I just want to go grab some dinner. I mean, I hope you're into it, but it seems like it almost feels I would say it feels like very like niche, like, you know what I mean, like,
yeah,
it's not. I don't think this is going to be for everybody.
I don't think it is, and I'm going to be honest. Like, I don't think it's for me. Like it's. This is what I keep saying. Like this, I'm glad. I'm glad they're doing this. I mean, cost aside, again, right? Like, because there's just no way I'm dropping that kind of money to do something like this, right? But cost aside,
Right.
I think even if I wanted to do that, even if I had all the money in the world and it wasn't an issue,
Right.
I still don't know that this is for me. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like I would be really into going to dinner there, like going to a restaurant and like eating dinner and maybe walking around the ship and doing a few things. Like, I'd be into that, spending a couple hours there and then leave.
Right.
That would be
basically going to like the Tony and Tina's wedding, like going to the show. You go, you have the experience, you get fed,
right?
But at the end of it, you're like, oh, that was a lot of fun. Okay, heading out.
Okay,
now.
yeah, right. I'm going to go enjoy the rest of my Disney vacation, right? Like I don't want to be here for 2 days, So I think this is probably for people like, what, like we go to Comic Cons and we go to, I've watched Star Wars Celebration, all that kind of thing. There's people that go out and they build their costumes and they spend a year doing it and that kind of thing. I think this is for them. You know what I'm saying? Like they're probably all over this.
Yeah, I mean the cosplayers and the right. I think, I mean, those people that really enjoy that and really want that, and they're going to be all over it. But yeah, I mean, Joe Average, or I mean, even I mean, I don't know if you consider us average fans or above average fans or whatever it is, but even for us, it's kind of like, no, and I mean, and I can't, I mean, you feel kind of bad, but I can't see spending this kind of money and bringing your kids on there. I mean,
well, right. That's the other thing.
Maybe, who knows? Maybe maybe it's totally geared for the kids, and if you're the dad, you're gonna have a good time. But maybe there's gonna be a lot more for the kids to do. I don't know. Just like but just like reading through the other stuff, the incidentals or the other sort of things on there, they're like, oh, bridge training and some special atrium entertainment, but it's only 15 minutes. Like I'm kind of like, it's not a big fireworks show. Obviously, you're inside.
Right.
You'd think they'd have, I don't know, some big a theater, like an in-universe show to watch, maybe.
I think they do. So like when you go to dinner, if I understand correctly, you're gonna be entertained by it may be a Twi'lek. That's or Twi'lek. We still don't know the correct thing. You know what I'm saying? So there's going to be like a singer who's a Twi'lek, and she's going to
that'd be okay.
That's the entertainment.
That could be pretty good. That would be fun, right? Ish.
Yeah, right. Like, do I want to spend $6,000 to do it? No.
Right.
But it's the thing is, so then the other thing I think is like, because one part of a big part of this thing is you get to go to Batu then, right? Or you go to Black Spire Outpost. That's your excursion the next day, and it looks like you spend several hours on Batu, and you're guaranteed to ride Rise of the Resistance. Like that's a guarantee, and then they do Millennium Falcon and Smuggler's Run because that's all part of your story. And then you eat lunch at this Docking Bay 7, which is, I mean, it's good. We ate there. The food was really good, but it's quick service. It's not a fancy restaurant, you know.
Right.
So that's part of your itinerary. You know, the thing I thought about with that is, I mean, that's all great. You go over to the 2 and you get to go through Galaxy's Edge. That's really cool. But my thinking is, like, if you're spending all this money to be immersed, I think you're going to be there while, people that are just there at the park. You know what I'm saying? So you may be all dressed in your robes and your costume, but I'm going to show up in cargo shorts and a t-shirt. And I'm going to be walking around, you know?
Because it looks like that might be there early for I don't know what time the park opens, but it says 8:45 to 9:30 is Rise of the Resistance.
Yeah, well, so you're actually getting on before the park opens.
Okay, but then the Millennium Falcon's 10 to 10:30.
Right.
So by that point, the park's open.
Right. Park opens at 9.
Yeah, so people are in there milling around by that point.
Right. So that was the other part of this, I thought. So you may be able to be immersed in the ship or in the hotel, as the case may be.
Yeah.
But you're not going to be immersed when you go out to Galaxy's Edge, because you're going to be there with other park guests who are not doing this, right? So that's another thing I was thinking about. But and then you do lightsaber training, and the lightsaber training, are they going to give you the cool lightsaber that we've seen the video of, and do you get to keep that, or is that not
that's going to be an add-on, baby? You know?
Yeah, that's what I think. I think it's going to.
Here's your wooden stick if you want to play. If you
right.
Do or you can buy this special retractable one over here. You know?
Right. Because they've already said that there's going to be stores on the ship, and you can go and buy clothes and all the Star Wars clothes and stuff like that. So I'm going to go to a couple of the other slides here just to kind of give you.
Sure. In theory, it sounds like it could be neat, but on the flip side, I'm like, I don't know.
I might be able to be talked into it for a night, go overnight and do something. Again, if money were no object, which in this case it is, but if it were, I might be able to be talked into going for overnight. I don't know. I don't.
I mean, they have it stretched out over 3 days. I mean, it's not really 3 days, but I mean, you're basically sleeping there 2 nights. But
2 nights.
Yeah, and just looking at the thing though, it feels. I mean, it feels a little stretched out. I mean, your sleepover from day 2 to 3. I mean, you literally get up, have breakfast, and get out.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And you're kind of like, well, at that point, why don't they shuttle me to the shuttle me? Why don't I take the shuttle down after the nighttime entertainment, after the whatever it is,
right?
And, land, and then go to my new hotel or something. But
yeah,
I don't know.
But this is so. What I've got up on the screen now is a shot of the room, and I believe this is the standard cabin. So this is the prices that we were looking at earlier. Right. So the top image is the concept art, and the bottom image is the actual hotel room from.
Oh, it is. Okay.
From the same vantage point, basically, and you can see it's not a huge space. No. You know what I'm saying? It really is and there's another image here. I think shows it better. This one.
Oh, here we go.
Right. I mean, the bed seems like a full-size bed, but look at these cots. They're not, you know what I'm saying? I don't think you could get an adult in that bunk bed, right?
Yeah, they're kids bunk beds.
They're tiny, and especially in the image with the man standing next to it.
Yeah. Well, look, it even has that safety thing there, a little kid would be up in there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I mean,
and again, I'm pretty sure these are the standard rooms. So this is basically what we're talking about for that $6,000 for 4 people.
Yeah, my kids wouldn't fit in there.
Yeah, they're not. Those cots are not or the bunk beds are not big. I mean, it's almost like you got to sleep sitting up.
Yeah, right.
That's what it looks like.
Welcome to space, kids.
Right. But you can see, like, it is like it's like a room on a ship. I mean, I feel like the bunk beds on the ship were a little bit bigger, but
yeah.
And then this image is some of the food.
Now that could be kind of neat.
Yeah. So everybody's kind of talking about the blue shrimp. Like that's an odd choice.
It is. I didn't see. I didn't realize what it was. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a little strange.
I mean, I'll say this: like we ate at that docking place Bay 7 the last time when we were there a few weeks ago,
right?
And that food was really good. Okay. I mean, we got and again, it was just quick service. I forget what I got, but whatever it was very good.
Yeah, I mean,
so
I do trust Disney with the food. I mean,
yeah,
like, I can't imagine. They can make it look as funky as they want. But I trust them. I mean, I can't see them serving something that's not, it's not that's not good. I mean,
right.
You might not. I mean, you might not care for it, but I think in the grand scheme of things, it would have to be good.
Right.
That stuff. I mean, I don't know if it looks good, but it looks neat. You know what I mean? It looks like it'd be fun to get and be like, "What's this? What's this?" You know?
Right. So that's kind of the Galactic Star Cruise is kind of what we know so far, and it's like I said, I think the prices we looked at it before, like those prices will vary because like they do it like if around the holidays and stuff, the prices will probably go up because that's how the parks work. That's how the regular hotels work. So I'm sure it's going to be the same for this.
Sure. And then like we're saying, like you can upgrade your rooms,
right?
So like and my kids or my one daughter's older than so that's like we would probably want a bigger space if we were to do it, and so suddenly we're looking at a bigger room and even more money.
Yeah.
So that's
and there's the thing like you can eat at like when you go to do the dinner, you can eat at the captain's table. That's an upcharge. That's something you can pay to do, or you can just eat with the rest of the people that are there. But you can do this other thing. So
that's kind of nice in a way because like if you don't, I mean, if you don't want to sit with a captain, like if you don't want to be, if like look,
right.
I just dinner. So that's kind of nice for people that might not be as into that. But if you're really a diehard role player into it type of thing, that could be fun too. I guess paying that extra money and having dinner with the captain.
And I'm sure there's an extra like something happens at the captain's table that you would think. So that's kind of where it is. I thought we'd talk about it because it's. I mean, I can't say that I sort of knew what this thing was going to be, so I don't know that I was excited about it, but it's like I said, would I go here for dinner? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And would I walk around and I would love to go up to the bridge, check all that stuff out. I would totally do that. But do I spend 2 days here? No, I don't.
Yeah. It has to be. It would have to be. There's got to be a lot more. Like I mean, I'm just thinking of even like a regular cruise ship. Yeah, and we've been on the Disney cruises. Like, like when you're there, like I don't know, my guys are big swimmers, so like we were constantly up at the pool and outside, and I get it's a different thing, but like
right,
like when you're just milling around, like what do you do with everybody? I mean, I guess there's lightsaber training, and I guess you just do that. I mean, is there not room for everybody to go do that, or is that like the activities on the ship where they're like, oh, we're gonna go do this, and like a handful of people show up or something like that.
Right. And I think what I've heard is there's like, and this may not be accurate, so don't quote me on this, but I think I heard there's like somewhere between 50 and 70 rooms, like so it's not huge, right? And you're not talking about like thousands of people.
It's not what's the big gigantic cruise, right?
Right. So
that big one,
the Wish or whatever the new one is.
Yeah,
I forget.
Isn't that like the biggest cruise ship or something like that?
Yeah, it's like enormous.
Yeah.
So you're not going to have that many people, so it is going to be more of an intimate thing where you can, like, I think if you wanted to do if you want to do lightsaber training, they're going to make it that you can do it.
There's going to be enough space and enough for all, they're right, say there's 200 guests or something,
Right.
or whatever. So okay, that's interesting. I don't know. Well, I'll tell you. I mean, the idea certainly sounds interesting. I would not want to be the first guests on board. You know what I mean? I would. I have to see. I would need to know.
Yeah.
Well, money both either way, money or no money. I need to know more information.
Yeah.
Couldn't go into this cold. And even in taking the money out of it. I'm not the guy that I don't like to just jump into stuff. I need to, well, what's going to happen here? What am I,
Yeah.
I like to have an idea,
And I've heard them say that you're going to have, you can be as involved in it as you want, or not as involved, right?
Okay. All right.
So if you don't want to participate in like all the little, intrigue or help the rebel soldier or whatever, you don't have to do that. But then what I said is like, well, yeah, but wouldn't you feel like if you spent that kind of money to do this, and then, are you going to opt out? Like, I'd sort of be like, well, I have to do everything because I just spent $6,000 to do it, right?
Exactly. Right.
Like, I don't want to sit in my cabin.
Right.
I mean, I may want to sit in my cabin, but I'm not going to sit in my cabin because I just spent $6,000 to be there.
You're dragging around. Kids are crying. Come
Right.
on, we got a rebel guy.
So, it's just I don't know. It's like I said, if people are into it, that's fantastic. I mean, happy.
Yeah.
I just don't think I'm not this kind of fan. This is not me. It's
right.
It's like I said, I think if you're a cosplayer and you spend a year building a costume so you can go to Celebration, this is probably right up your alley.
I wonder if they're even people aren't going to be allowed on board with like all these elaborate costumes. Do you think?
I think they are. I think they are going to let them. I mean, I think they did say something about that. I can't remember exactly, but I think you are encouraged.
Oh, all right. Well, that's different. Okay, that's
Right.
interesting.
Like you can't have weapons or anything, but I think you can.
Right. Well, that would be, that would be a story element,
Right.
Okay.
Right.
You got right. Interesting. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I maybe not now. I mean, if we were a lot younger and it was maybe basically before the kids, like if it was a gang of friends or something like that, I could see maybe going and doing something like that and having a good time.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I can't see doing it with like all that money for like little kids. They're not going to get much out of it.
No.
And then, I mean, there's a small window there, and then all of a sudden your kids are going to be too old for it. Where like, now
Right.
my kids look at you like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
My kids would have no interest whatsoever.
Yeah. I think like Nick would probably be into it, but I don't know that Katie or that my daughter would.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I want to learn more about it. Like I said, I haven't heard anything that is I haven't heard anything yet that's like, oh yeah, I have absolutely got to do this,
Right.
I mean, there's elements that are really neat, but there's nothing that I'm like, I'm gonna,
drop everything tomorrow.
drop everything to go and do it. So, I'm not saying it won't happen. Like they could come out tomorrow and be like, oh, there's this fantastic experience that you get to do, and you get to meet you get to meet Harrison Ford and all that. I'm like, all right, I'm in.
What's funny is it just popped in my head, but I'm surprised that there isn't some sort of like a laser tag component to all this.
Yeah.
And it just popped in my head, but I'm like, wouldn't it, like, oh, I don't know how they would make it work, and maybe they want to stay away from the guns and the blasters and all that.
That's probably what it is.
And I do get that, but it is at the end of the day, it's Star Wars, and there's blasters, and you're gonna,
Right.
like, wouldn't it be fun to have a Star Wars laser tag area, and you
Yeah.
send, whether it's all the kids get to go do that. I mean, because our kids, your son just did it for his birthday, and
Yeah.
they had a blast. And I mean, imagine doing something like that on the cruise ship and theming it that, like, oh, we got, or I don't know, or even if you're not shooting at each other, you got to go in and shoot stormtroopers, or I don't
Right.
know. So there you go. I should be an Imagineer. Hi, sign me up.
There you go. I'm on board.
I know.
Yeah, and the other thing is, like, this is set in the sequel timeline, and and supposedly
that makes sense. But
you will get like a visit, or there's some interaction with Rey and Kylo Ren. So that's
Okay.
that's another thing
Okay.
that I'm not going to say. Not that's going against it, but I'm saying I don't know that they're, you know, if you're talking about guys our age, and they may not be, right?
Right.
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 You know, um, I would be more interested in this if it was set in the original trilogy timeline. You know,
Yeah.
um, if
That's
you were talking about the Empire and Darth Vader and all that kind of stuff, I'd be like, oh, that's more my speed. But
right.
um, not that I
Yeah.
don't like the sequels. I like the
No.
sequels,
No.
but it's
Right.
just not like
No.
the sequels aren't going to get me to go do this.
Right.
Maybe the
Yeah.
original trilogy would, but not this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. Just I mean, well, they're definitely going to push forward with the new stuff,
Yeah,
and mainly because it's new and it's theirs type of thing. But also, I mean, they figured that's what the kids want, and I think at the end of the day, they're still pushing for the kids. So I guess that's why they're sticking with it. But I
yeah,
don't know. I'd really, I mean, I always thought even as time's gone on now for Galaxy's Edge, we've said this before. I almost wish they would just make it like ambiguous, and then whoever turns up that day turns up.
yeah.
Hey, look, Baby Yoda, or whatever. Like,
I
that's
wish
fine.
they made it. And I think consensus seems to be. I'm not going to say that, but like it seems to be that because I think everybody really likes how they did it at Avengers Campus, where the timeline is just doesn't matter, right? It's
Right.
not
Like Iron Man's rolling around.
right,
And,
right.
and right. I know they had, what do you call it? They had Sam Wilson as Captain America the one day, and then I saw regular Cap the
Right.
one day.
They had Black Widow. That's
Yeah, right. Black Widow, right?
and
Yeah.
and people really like that. And I think it was a mistake for them to go to. I think it was a mistake for them to pigeonhole
Yeah.
the timeline. I just and they could fix it. If they really want to, they could change it without that much of a
Right.
problem. I think, but for some reason, I think they're. I mean, the problem now is that they have that ride, Rise of the Resistance, which is firmly set in the sequel era.
Yeah.
But I don't think that matters that much.
I mean, how maybe the first time you're there, if you get really caught up in it and you're really like kind of immersed, then it might make a difference. But literally the second time you get on the ride, you go stand in line for the ride, or you're like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's I don't know how much people are really. At the end of the day, you're getting on the ride. Like people
Right.
know that.
I don't know how much the average person going to Galaxy's Edge cares
Right.
about the timeline.
That's right.
That's what it comes down to.
And if I can turn around and see, Ray and BB-8, and then over here is R2D2 and C-3PO,
Right.
or anybody. I mean, or even young Obi-Wan, or you know what I mean, like
Right. Or the Mandalorian, because that's that's the other thing they've by doing it the way they've done it.
right.
You can't have over at Avengers Campus, every time there's a new show or a new movie, they're bringing out new characters that are for that show or that movie or whatever. And the Mandalorian is so popular, and you can't, the way they've done it, you can't have him in the land, which doesn't make a lot of sense.
And him and Grogu should be out
Right.
there every day basically at this
Right.
point. And I mean, and all the shows that are branching out now. I mean, they're gonna Ahsoka, and I mean, but then flipping back, they're gonna have Kenobi, and
Right.
I bet you it wouldn't surprise me to see that shift at some point. But
Yeah.
then that was right. Then you have this whole immersive Starliner pulling in.
Right.
That you're gonna get off your Starliner, and hey, what C-3PO? He doesn't belong here.
Yeah.
Like the man, Grogu doesn't belong here. Original
Yeah.
Yoda, he doesn't belong here.
Yeah. I think they kind of tied their hands a bit when they did that. I think that was a mistake. But I heard at one point that they were talking about, and I'd love to see them do something like this, because I think this would make a lot of sense, is to like change, because it's like I said, once you're there, other than Rise of the Resistance, there's really nothing that is firmly set in that timeline. Like you could be walking around anywhere.
Yeah.
And I think the radar dish on the Falcon is
Right.
not the round one. I think it's the other one, right?
They got to fix that.
Yeah, they got to fix that. But like, that's really it.
Yeah.
Like, so I had heard at one point they were talking about, well, maybe at certain times of the year, or certain months you do, like it's the sequel series these months,
That
and
could be
then
fun.
it switches over to the original trilogy, and then it switches over
Right.
to the prequels, and I think that's the route they should take personally, like, because then you could, like, I would be like, hey, let's try to go there when it's their original trilogy
Right.
timeline. Like, I would totally be into that,
Right.
So I
Yeah.
don't know if they will or not, but that's
But that would
kinda,
also be a great way to keep people coming back too, really.
yeah.
Like, I mean, if if you can say, hey, 4 times, every say every quarter, 4 times a year, we're going to change the theming slightly.
Right.
And so if you have the means, or if you're local or whatever, and then you can be like, oh, hey, they got the new characters are out, let's shoot over and check in.
Right.
That would be kind of cool. Versus now, after, so especially now, I mean, the sequel trilogy is over and done with now, and they're still locked into it.
Right.
Which is kind of weird when you think about it, especially with all the hype with the Mandalorian being so successful and everything, like you said,
Right. So
Interesting.
yeah, we'll see where it goes. But you got to get one of these days we got to get there together. That's it. We got to make that work.
I know. I see my what do you call it? My timeline. I see people getting there, and I'm like, I cannot believe I haven't gotten myself there. I couldn't help it.
Yeah. Well, we did have like 2 years where,
I know, right?
going on 2 years where
I'm supposed to be some, like, above average fan at the very least, and
yeah.
Still haven't gotten myself down there.
So at any rate, all right, you ready to move on? Should we talk about the Bad Batch?
Yeah. So Bad Batch. Oh well, first, the still we have up now. First things first is season 2 was announced. Bad Batch wrapped up last Friday, and then right away they announced, or was it even before the finale?
I think it was even before the final episode.
Yeah. So we're getting coming next year we'll get season 2 of the Bad Batch, which is great. I looking forward to that, and I really, now that the season's over and everything, I really enjoyed it. I I think it had its highs and lows and all that, but overall I really enjoyed it, and I feel like the characters, like the clones themselves, can be fleshed out. I think we need a little bit more fleshing out of them, so to speak. But I really liked Omega. I really enjoyed her and her character, who I didn't think I was going to like.
Yeah.
And then I really enjoyed just how it just fleshed everything out, or I should say, the connective tissue between that I was able to kind of pull in. I loved seeing the aftermath of Order 66, the very beginning of it. And then these last 2 episodes with the fall of Camino. I thought that was just really cool, and seeing the Empire decide, like, we're done with these clones now, and basically wipe them out, or spoiler alert, they basically blow Camino, all the floating cities, they just blow them all away.
Yeah, they reduce it to, because I did, we sort of talked about it in the last show, because I think we had seen it was leading up to the final 2 episodes, I think, is the last time we talked.
You're right, yeah.
And so we knew Hunter was probably going to end up at Camino, and and I think we talked about it then. Like, the Empire can't have this group of people who can, build an army,
right?
Just out there build an army for other people. Like, there was really only one way to go there for them. Like, the Kaminoans were going to have to get wiped out.
Right. Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, we saw the Prime Minister was, heavily hinted that he was executed, basically.
Yeah.
The other one was killed on. Didn't Cad Bane kill her on the on the other planet? I can't remember.
Yeah. I think so. Or so the Prime Minister got killed. Then there was somebody else.
Samatu or
Nala Say, or I got them all mixed up.
I did. The one was from the movie.
Yeah.
She killed, and then the one that at the very end, the one that we see basically the Empire takes as like the lead scientist, I would almost say.
Right.
I don't remember her name from the movie. She may have been in there as well, but she seems to be one of the few to actually escape, but she didn't really escape. She was more kidnapped.
Yeah. Well, it's like I kind of thought what they're doing to her what they did with Jin's father in Rogue One, right? Like he was a scientist. They're like, you work for us now,
Yeah, right.
And that's kind of what's happening, right? Like they need that scientist to go and work for them now. And I was actually sort of thinking, like, I wonder if she ends up being, involved in the whole cloning of Palpatine thing,
Well, that's where I think that's where they're going with it. So we might as well talk about it. Go to the next still here. And, I picked up on this during the show when they drop her off at the facility and one woman walks out right away. I saw the insignia on her arm. I'm like, she's a cloner, or she's a clone scientist, just like the guy from The Mandalorian. And I forget his name. What was his name? Oh, Dr. Pershing, I think his name.
Pershing, yes, that's it.
Right. And I'm like, well, that's the same uniform. She's one of the, she's a scientist, like one of the clone ones. And so it obviously, with them dropping her off there, I picked up on that right away. I was like, oh my God, this is crazy.
Yeah.
And I definitely think that's where they're going with this, because so now they have an expert in cloning. They have the scientist here, who we know by her insignia has something to do with cloning.
Right.
And then skip the original trilogy, and then you go to The Mandalorian, and we saw in the one episode the tubes with, it kind of looks Snoke-ish, whatever was in there.
Snoke-like. Yeah.
So then you're like, okay, well, that might be early attempts to clone the Emperor. And then obviously by the very end, they successfully were able to clone the Emperor. So
right.
I think they're setting up a lot of that here. And it's kind of fun that they're able to do that. I mean, because, Rise of Skywalker, we kind of, people make fun of it now that, oh, somehow the Emperor came back. And, right. I mean, for what it was, you're like, whatever. At that point, I'm like, okay, whatever, fine, the Emperor's back,
Right.
But it's kind of fun to see them sort of backfill it. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. I'm down for it. I enjoy that. I enjoy the stories like that, where you're like, well, oh, we didn't know how that happened. I wish they had said it in the movie. At the very least, they should have said he was a clone. I don't think they even said that in the movie, did they?
Who was a clone? The Emperor?
Yeah.
I don't think they did. I think they said it in one of those supplemental things, or in the novel. I forget.
I assume, yeah. I mean, there's an old, and we're going to talk about the old expanded universe, which is now Legends, in a minute here. But I mean, in the old Dark Empire comics, the Emperor comes back, and it's revealed that he was been cloning his bodies all these years.
Right.
And when he shows up in Rise of Skywalker, I'm like, oh, they lifted it from Dark Empire. I'm like, all right, cool. And I got it, I got it right away. But I wonder how many people out there were like, well, what do you mean he came back? Like, like what? Why didn't you explain this a little bit better?
Right. Yeah. Well, I've said this before. I think the sequels almost suffered a little bit from the fact that Star Wars has all these avenues to tell stories now, right? Like they have comic books, and they have books, and they have these TV series now, and and I think at some point they were like, a lot of what happened in the sequel series, I feel like they were like, we know what, we're not going to worry about that for the movie. We'll deal with that somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I think that's why a lot of, like, I feel like that's why there was a lot of gaps, and those gaps ended up getting filled in, but they got filled in a comic book, or they got filled in a book. And it's like, well, that's not where I want to see it. I don't want to, I want the story to be self-contained, and
should be self-contained, and I should not have to see anything else to fully understand it.
Right.
If I want to know more,
right,
or oh, who's that character? What's his story? Then I can go find out more that way. That's great. But like I said, with the Emperor, they really, I think, owed a little bit more explanation. Like, how to get back? Well, who, he's the major bad guy. How to get back? Who was Snoke?
Right.
Right.
I
mean, I know, it was you figured it out, and I don't know. Some people may not have. They may have been watching like, what the hell is going on here?
You're right. Right. but it's what's funny is when I saw this image the first time I saw this image, and this was actually, but give credit to, it's this guy Paul Bateman that I follow on Twitter and on Facebook, and he's I guess I think he's an artist. I don't exactly know what he does, but I know he worked with Ralph McQuarrie at one point, and he's been in a number of different movies. I think he's like a combat. Like he's an acting. He doesn't have like a starring role in it and stuff, but he's like a combat person, like an actor. So I think he's been in Lord of the Rings. I think he was in Harry Potter at one point, like that kind of thing.
Okay.
So and like I said, he's never. I don't think he's never like a star, but he's always sort of like back in the background. But anyway, he posted this image, and when he posted it, I was like, oh my god, because I actually thought this was Pershing. I thought that's like, I recognized it right away, and I was like, oh my god, is that the guy?
Yeah.
And then I realized, I was like, all right, no, because that timeline doesn't work out. But the uniform is like identical, So that's pretty cool.
I thought that was I was really excited for that. I mean, like I was saying at the beginning, I like the show, I enjoy the show, but I'm finding that stuff like this I'm enjoying more. You know what I mean? So, but the show's not bad. I mean, I enjoyed the week.
I really like. I'll say this. I think I went into this. There's certainly episodes that were better than others, and I do feel like there were moments during the show where you're kind of like, it was almost like you got like for a while there we were getting like the cameo of the week. Right, like we saw Cad Bane, and then we saw Hera, and then we, in the very first episode we saw Kanan, and so I felt like, all right, it's like the cameo of the week thing going on, but like on a whole, like I think I went into this because I'm not a huge fan of the Clone Wars. I don't hate it, but it's not my favorite thing in the world.
Right.
And I kind of went into this with I'll say low expectations. I wasn't expecting much from it.
Yep, I'm with you.
And it was way better than I expected it to be. Right, like I was looking forward to watching it every week.
Yeah.
I think they did a really nice job with it. I thought the characters were really interesting. I kind of liked that. It didn't even occur to me while I was watching it, but at the end of the show, I'm sort of like, there was no Force stuff going on in the show. It was just about these characters. Now, I mean, maybe it turns out that Omega is Force sensitive. I know there's people who still speculate about that, but at least in this first season, we didn't see any of that. There
was no hints at all. I mean,
right.
Usually, if that's where they were going, they would have dropped a hint or two or something.
Right.
And they didn't. You're right. That is interesting. I mean, I hadn't even crossed my mind.
Right. Like it didn't occur to me until it was all over, and I'm sort of like, is this the first show we've seen without anybody with Force powers?
I mean, Solo, but he popped up at the very end. Mandalorian, but we had Baby Yoda. We thought. I mean,
Rogue One. I guess Rogue One didn't really have.
Oh right. Well, what's his name? The blind guy.
Yeah, right. But he didn't have like.
He had maybe forced light. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Jedi or anything like that, but he definitely had something going on there. But yes, right. But yeah, so it is fun to see. I mean the Jedi and all that. I like that. But like the Force, it's funny. Like with all that stuff, that I feel like that became a much bigger deal with the prequels. Like it was there, it was important during the original trilogy, but I mean, I don't feel like it was any more important than shooting around, running around shooting blaster.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it was just another aspect of it, and the prequels obviously that became much more important because that's what this was more about.
Right, I agree. That's true. I agree. I don't think like we didn't talk about the Forces. I feel like we didn't talk about the Forces much before the prequels. Like it was a thing, but it wasn't like
there, right. It was just more. Yeah, I mean, when we played, with the toys and stuff. I mean, it was more about just running around blasting and
right.
Like it wasn't. Yeah.
So
But so here, well, since we have it here, go to the next slide. So when they drop her off, and we forget her name, when they drop her off at this mountain, right?
Uh-huh.
And so this is where the
Kaminoan scientist.
Yes, when they drop the Kaminoan scientist off, it's at a mountain, and they don't say the name of it, they don't do anything. But when they showed this and they were taking her here, I had a thought. I'm like, is that Mount? And is it Tantus? I guess is how you pronounce it. I have it written on the screen, but
Yeah.
But Mount Tantus was from an old. It's Heir to the Empire. It's the first expanded universe novel that came out in 1991.
Okay.
Right. And so during the course of that story, they discover that the Emperor had a secret storehouse on this planet Wayland that had a bunch of his stuff in it.
Okay.
Right? And one of the things that he had in there were cloning tanks. And in the course of the story, there's a Jedi that was guarding it, but it turned out it was a clone of a Jedi.
Okay.
Worse, Cyboth, I think his name was. But it was so funny though. So that's sort of secondary. But when they just showed this mountain and they're taking I know they have the clone, they're taking the Kaminoan scientist. I'm like, I wonder if that's Mount I always say Tannis in my head for like Indiana Jones.
That's how I would write it or read it.
Right. Oh, you think it's Tannis like
Indiana
Jones?
That's what I think.
Oh, okay. All right. So anyway, so that popped in my head right away, right? So I'm thinking about it. I uploaded this picture and I put the text on it to our deck, and I'm all excited, right? So like literally last night before, we were supposed to record last night, it didn't happen, but literally last night before we started recording, I was going through and hit the next slide, please. And I go and on StarWars.com, they have this image, right? And this is of the promotional artwork. And down in the lower left-hand corner down there, it says Wayland, Mount Tannis.
Oh yeah.
And so I was so excited, and it just total dork out, geek out dork moment. I'm like, oh my God, it is Mount Tannis.
Did you read? This is one of the books you read?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Right. So I didn't read by any means all of the expanded universe, the old or the new. I didn't. Okay. I haven't read a bunch of it, but I did when it first started coming out in '91. I did read it because it was Star Wars, and that's all there was. It was like,
right.
There was the Heir to the Empire series, which is 3 books by Timothy Zahn. That's where we first got Thrawn.
Okay.
That's where we got Mount Tannis, and there's a bunch of other things that were in there. And then sort of around the same time, we got the Dark Empire comics from Marvel. I'm sorry, from Dark Horse.
Okay.
And that's where the Emperor was cloned and they brought him back. And then there was that. And then after those, they were like the big ones because they were the first. And then after those, there were subsequent stories. And again, some were good, some were horrible, and they kind of went on there. And then they rolled forward in time. I mean, to the point where, Han and Leia's children I think they started having children. I mean, it was just, I didn't follow any of that stuff.
Okay.
Off. But, the Heir to the Empire stuff is interesting because it was the first, and now we're starting to see a lot of stuff from there being pulled into the universe, like Thrawn.
Yeah.
Stuff here, and so a lot of people are starting to wonder now, will we see that sort of adapted into the universe? Like, they're going to pick, like, if you remember, like a couple of years ago now, Kathleen Kennedy at one point, and people write on her about, but she said something like, oh, well, we don't have the books like Marvel does to pull from, for our story ideas,
right,
or something. And I'm sure she said it off the cuff, but everybody jumped all over because they're like, we have all these expanded universe novels, and now I don't know if this was the plan all along, or if somebody pointed out to her like, hey, no, we do have a lot of stuff. We should really look at this material that people are so fond of,
right,
that we dismissed. Anyway, it's kind of neat to see them going and farming this stuff and where they might insert it in the timeline. And like I said, this it's silly. It's a mountain, but the fact that it popped in my head from 1991, because that's probably the last time I looked. You know what I mean? I haven't read those books in forever. I'm not that overly familiar with the old expanded universe, and it just pops in my head. I'm like, that's a that's a mountain.
It's cool because I saw a lot of people, and I was never one of the book readers, so like I like a lot of this stuff from the book just like totally goes over my head. Like I miss it, but I did see a lot of people like on Twitter talking about it before it was like confirmed. I guess is like is it
okay.
so and of course I'm like I don't know anything about it. So I maybe it is, maybe it isn't. So, but it was really cool that it like a lot of people picked up on that.
That's cool. Yeah, like I said, I didn't see. I missed it, and I thought I was being so clever, and then I'm just like, oh no, here it is.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they like. I would like for them, and I think Dave Filoni said this at one point. He was like, look, we're going to take the things that work, and we're going to adapt it to our story, and we're going to make it, and I think that's, I think that's appropriate the way they've done. Like, they take Thrawn. Okay, it's not the Thrawn from the books, but it's the character, and they fit him into the current timeline, and this kind of stuff. Like, I think that's the way to do it, to bring that legend stuff in.
Hey,
it's got to be adapted, but it fits.
Check your mic. I'm getting like a clicking noise or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm not sure if something's tapping or hitting or something. I don't hear it now, but when you were talking.
Okay. Oh, you know what? Is it this?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
but my point is, I'll start again. But I think this is what they should do is they take this stuff from the books that works, or that's a cool concept, and they adapt it to the current timeline. I think that's the best way to do it, and then it's kind of the best of both worlds. So it's not the Thrawn from the books, but it's Thrawn, the character, and he's now in our timeline. I think that works well.
Yeah, I think so, and that's a great way to make. I mean, I understand why they threw out all the old expanded universe stuff. I get it, because they want movies to be fresh and new, and they wanted to run with it. But it's a great way to, all those people that were fans of that stuff, like diehard fans, and even me as a casual fan, it's fun to bring that stuff back in and start to, it's almost like what like Marvel does with the movies. I mean, they used all those comics from all those years, and they're like, well, what was really cool,
right?
Like, what was the best stuff? Let's bring that to the movie. And it's kind of like that. Like, let's look at the expanded universe and let's say, like, well, that was awesome. That character was really cool. Let's bring him. Or that was a really neat thing. Or, oh, that was dumb. Let's not use that.
Yeah. Right. There was so much that contradicted. I mean, at least as far as I understand, because I didn't read any of the books, but like there was so much contradiction going on that I don't really think they had a choice but to get rid of all that. They couldn't say, okay, this book is canon, but that book isn't. It would have been.
It would have been a mess. It would have been so messy. It was just easier to just say, nope, gone.
Right.
Late. But one of my favorite things is very, very early on in Thrawn, or I'm sorry, in the Heir to the Empire books, Leia was pregnant. Right?
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute now. She was pregnant in there, but then in Dark Empire, she was also pregnant.
Okay.
Whatever it was, like right off the bat, there was a miscommunication, and the things didn't line up, and basically she was pregnant at different times. And so she had twins first, and then she had a third child, and they named him Anakin. And so then they had 3 kids, and then running forward in the old expanded universe, and like right off the bat, like they're like all of a sudden they're like, she had a third kid, like all right, wasn't playing, nobody playing that, nobody. I don't think at the time nobody even knew if Star Wars was going to successfully come back.
Right.
So they weren't planning it, and then when it did, that's why the EU got messy.
Right.
So, and then George did the sequels, and then a lot of stuff got thrown out the window there. I remember reading a book that Luke went to his mother's home planet, and I really don't remember much else about it. But like, the minute the prequels came out, shoop, out the window it goes.
Yeah, that was all done, right?
Yeah. Anyway.
But I really liked the show. Like I'm looking forward to the next season. I mean, I do think you know, I was sort of surprised we didn't learn more about Omega at the end, right? Because they sort of teased. I mean, they've sort of been teasing that she's something special, or at least they were at the beginning, and then that story sort of went by the wayside.
The only thing that we did find out that I'm not sure is that she was there when the Bad Batch was created. We found out that she's older than we are,
right?
And that was interesting. And so obviously she's not aging like a normal clone, and she's a variant or something like that. So there's that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that was the extent of it. Is her variation is that she's a female and she's aging normally.
I thought when we found that out, when we found out that she was there when they were made, I was like, is she gonna end up being like their mother, almost like, or at least what I'm saying? Like they got the whatever the DNA or whatever that they got it from her. And so, like, they're not really her brothers. She's like I don't know. I was like, are they going to go there? That was my first thought. I mean, I prefer they not go there, but I was thinking that,
But if she was the original genetic donor,
right?
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe that's the secret. I just don't. Maybe that's why. Because remember, at first it seemed like she had all of their abilities. Like the first few episodes, it was almost like she could do what they could do.
Yeah.
She picked up tracking really quick in one episode.
Right.
And I was like, oh, maybe maybe that's why, because she's like the original donor. But I don't know.
I don't know. That would be interesting. I don't know. Yeah, I do remember thinking like, I noticed there's some complaints that she was good at a bunch of stuff, but then I'm like, but if Jango Fett was her donor, then of course she's going to be good at stuff.
Right.
But right, so that can be a pretty neat wrinkle if, depending how they present it, if that she's actually their quote mother.
Right.
Yeah. It'd be a little weird because she's young, but if it's obviously nothing, it's just genetic material, so it's
yeah.
That could be neat.
We'll probably learn more about her in the next season, is my guess.
Yes.
I do hope they. I hope they get more like they. I hope there's more of a overarching story arc in the next season. Like it's not like a mission of the week kind of thing, which is what this season sort of was.
Yeah.
That there's more of a storyline, but I mean. It's fine the way it was. Like I thought they did a really nice job with it. I liked it.
Yeah, I'm curious now. As of the end of the season, are they still working for Sid? Technically,
I guess.
Yeah, I mean, as of
because they never really left. I mean, when he gets captured,
right?
Because I've been rewatching them.
Okay.
When he gets captured, they are initially at the beginning of that episode, they are on a mission for Sid.
Right.
And then Rex calls them and says, "Hey, I need help with this."
And they
to go rescue Gregor, right? It was Was it Gregor?
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Right.
So they're on a mission for Sid then. Now that all got pushed by the wayside because Hunter got captured, and then they had to go rescue Hunter, and then ended up on Camino, and but at the time of that episode where they rescue Gregor, they're still working for Sid.
Okay. All right.
So
yeah, so we'll have to see where next season picks up and stuff, but
right.
Well, I guess that's a good status quo to start with, and then like you said though, I'd like to see more overreaching story overall.
Yeah,
the thing
like they get involved with the rebellion.
I'm sure that's where it's going.
Yeah.
But I'd like to see that, and I mean I hope they explore this whole cloning thing a lot more too. I mean that seems fascinating. I mean
right.
The setup's all there. It's just a matter of how you want to how are they going to let us know what's going on there without without our heroes ending up in there. So I'm curious to see how that might work too, or unless
maybe they do. We don't know.
That's right. They end up in there, for some reason, or yeah. Cool.
So I said before, I'm totally on board with them bringing in some of the original series characters in animation. I mean, I guess it's too early for Luke.
It's too early, but I mean, yes, at some point, I mean, even if they did a time jump, or and we've said this before, I still would love to see a post Jedi animated series with the original characters.
Yes.
And just be able to tell some stories with them, and it doesn't even have to be anything crazy, but just like it would be. Well, I always said this: Heir to the Empire, was like a nice big story, and it'd be nice to have something sort of like in between the originals and the sequels. For our guy, for the original guy.
They need to fill that gap.
Yes,
and it needs to be. They need to fill that gap, and it needs to be well done.
Yeah, right.
And I, while I was watching Bad Batch this season, I can't get over the how good the animation is. I mean, the animation is gorgeous. Like, you're sitting there and you're watching it. It's an animated series, but man, it looks just. I mean, I know it's animated, but you're watching it and it could totally. It might as well be live action. It's that good,
Yeah.
And
right.
And I would, and if they're going to do a series with our characters, it needs to be that kind of quality,
Right, definitely, I agree.
Okay, so I think that wraps up Bad Batch review. Do you want to roll? You want to roll into? We just got this today, right? This just dropped today. This was the.
So we're gonna
we're going to show. It's the trailer, the official trailer for the Star Wars Visions show that's coming. Do you have the date?
I think it said September 22nd.
Okay. Yeah, so this is neat.
Yeah, I was really. I mean, they a couple weeks ago they released something, sort of like a promo preview type thing, and had some people talking about it. But this is the first like extended look at the various animation things we've seen, and I mean, it looks cool. Yeah,
I mean, this is not what I mean. I know anime. I know what anime looks like, but I wasn't quite expecting this. Anime always reminds me. I think the show that I always think of when I think of anime is I really like that show Star Blazers when we were a kid.
Okay, right.
And this sort of like there are images in here, not the whole thing, but there's moments in here where I'm like, oh yeah, that kind of reminds me of Star Blazers.
Yeah, right. I mean, I'm kind of the same way with anime. Like, I remember trying to get into it probably as a teenager, maybe, but back then, it definitely always looked good. But the only thing I really remember is that it was like usually hyper violent, which this is not going to be. But and I remember some of the storylines being like kind of hard to follow.
Okay.
From an standpoint. And so I never really got into it. I mean, I always appreciated the artwork, animation style, but I never got into it. And now it's a whole thing. So I'm assuming there's much more to it than when we were young.
Right.
But even look, like we're watching the trailer now, and even within the trailer, some of the different animation styles are very different. So it's all under the anime umbrella, I guess. But this stuff here looks really cool, like the lightsabers and whatever that thing is.
And this isn't going to be like, I mean, obviously it's a show, but this is not going to be like a like there's not going to be like a storyline here. I mean, they're going to be self-contained shows, right? I don't know how many there are, but each one is like a self-contained story, right?
As far as I understand it, each one is self-contained. I think there's 8 or 9 of them. And they're not even tied to the quote real Star Wars universe.
Okay.
So it's just like basically these guys were just like, hey, do some Star Wars anime and doesn't matter like what, like like the one they just showed a girl on the screen looked like she had part of Vader's outfit on, and like
right.
It's just that I guess she'll for that part she'll be Vader maybe, or somebody else, or so it's going to be like. It's I guess the best way to say is anime influenced by Star Wars versus versus the other way around. I'm not. Well,
there's an element, like there's elements of So there's a shot here of a woman holding a laser bolt in the air, using, like, I assume she's using the Force, kind of like Kylo Ren did when we first met him. So I saw that and I was like, that's really neat. And then there's one here where everything looks like it's almost in black and white, and it looks like an old Western kind of thing.
Yeah,
but it's with, like, that looks really cool.
And then there's another one in here. I only know in the previous little thing they revealed, it was like, I think it's a studio that used to do Astro Boy. I don't know if you know who he is.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Astro Boy.
I'm only vaguely familiar, but there's a character that's like, it looks like a robot boy, but he's got C-3PO's circles on his chest. And I think that's a studio that did Astro Boy. So I guess they're doing some sort of, maybe a hodgepodge of the two together or something like that. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah. Astro Boy, FYI, was born from, or at least Mega Man, the video games were born from Astro Boy. I think that's how it goes.
Oh, yeah.
And Mega Man's a thing. Yeah. But like this scene right here, like if you're watching, like it looks like a total Western, that one image.
I thought that was old footage until right now. I thought that was an old clip of like some old Japanese movie or something, and here it was animated.
Yeah, I'm gonna, like, that looks really cool. That image right there. It looks like it's like out of an old black and white Western. That's what it looks like.
Right. I know. So I think this is going to be really neat. I mean, and I think it's going to be fun. I'm glad it's not connected to anything because, again, it goes back to the, create some new stuff that if it's really cool, you can incorporate it into the main universe if you want to.
Right.
And, and if it's just what it is, it's fine too. If it's just a cool story. I mean, some of the stuff is really neat.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say, of all the announcements we've gotten about Star Wars, this was probably the thing I was least excited about.
Yeah.
I was like, that's not something I'm going to be interested in. But, seeing this trailer, I'm like, you know what, this looks really good. I'm kind of into this now,
Yeah. I mean, I've always been a fan of animation, and I like all that stuff, especially this being and different. I'm happy to see, like, that was cool. The Death Star droid with his, like, whatever that cannon thing was. That was funny. It does. There's some very Star Wars stuff in here as you're looking,
Yeah.
But yeah, there's Mos Espa. Yeah.
Right.
This looks cool. I mean, I'm excited for it. And as much as I just got done, kind of fawning all over, like, everything's connected and the connective tissue between everything, I'm at the very same time, I'm excited for this because it's not any of that. It's totally unknown, and you can just watch it and have a good time. Right.
It's just to enjoy, right? Like, it's that, there's not, if this is a, I mean, the trailer looks great, but if this is a complete disaster, then no harm, no foul.
Right.
They just don't do season 2 and life goes on. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
But, it could turn into something too. Like, it would be like there, it could be that there's a character in one of these episodes that is really interesting. And then he gets, maybe they get a series, or maybe they get a whole, their own show,
Yeah,
so
definitely that,
But yeah, I'm impressed by this. I mean, I wasn't, like I said, I was not excited about the show, but now I'm like, yeah, I'm going to tune in for it.
Yeah, right. Right. Just, like you said, just something enjoyable to watch, and it's Star Wars, so why not?
Right.
Yeah.
So, and it's this. We're saying it's September 22nd.
I believe that is correct.
Okay.
I might say it here at the end of the trailer, but I don't have to say here.
That guy looks cool. There's, Slave One makes an appearance, or is it Boba Fett's ship now? Is that a thing?
Yeah. Talk about that. I forgot about that. So, like, initially, Lego branded it Boba Fett's ship, and there is an uproar, but everyone's like, well, wait a minute. Lego always does that. There's Luke Skywalker's X-Wings, Darth Vader's TIE Fighter.
Yeah.
Always does that. But now but one of the comics recently, there's an event in the comics going on, Bounty Hunter War.
Okay.
And they put the various, like, as for, like, all, what do you call it? Like, variant covers, I guess each bounty hunter they put on with his or her ship behind them, and it's written in Arabish, the Star Wars language.
Yeah.
Wait, how does it say it?
Arabish, yeah.
Arabish.
That's how I pronounce it. I don't know
Yeah,
if that's...
no, you're right. I'm terrible with that stuff. But apparently Boba Fett says, it doesn't say Slave One anymore. It says Fire Spray, because that's the type of ship it is, and I think they're just going to start using that for the ship's name now.
Okay.
So, I don't know how I feel about it. On one hand, I'm like, wait, it's Slave One. It is what it is. But I guess, if Boba Fett's going to be a main character now, and he's going to have his own show, and
right.
A problem, then I'm like, well, I guess why even make it an issue? Just fine.
Right, just move on. Right.
Yeah. I mean, really, I don't think I think I did read somewhere. I think they've said the ship's name like one time in all the media, or maybe like 2 times or something like that. I don't think it was any.
Right.
I think in Clone Wars, I think is when they said it.
Okay, yeah, because I mean, they never say it in the original trilogy. The only reason I knew that it was named that is because of the toy.
Right.
But yeah, I don't think they ever mentioned the name of the ship in the movies.
No. I'm almost positive I saw that it was only in the cartoon, the Clone Wars cartoon, that they said it.
Okay.
Right. Again, yeah. I mean, whatever. Yeah, I don't know.
Life will go on. I'm not that worried about it.
And right, it's not like it's the Millennium Falcon they got to change the name to. It's
right.
Ship, and okay, fine. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll probably still call it Slave One just because I'll keep forgetting about it. But
right, well, it's just like I call to this day that they mix the toy names up. So like 4LM.
Yeah, 4LM. I do the same.
Yeah, somebody talks about them, I'm like, oh crap, who are they talking about? I know where I'm in my head,
Yeah, those two. It'll always be 4LOM is the one with the cloak,
right?
And Succus is the other one. That'll always be. Because look, I don't care what anybody says. Kenner was canon.
I know, right?
Right. It's an AT-AT. It's not an AT-AT. It's an AT-AT. Because that's what they said in the commercial.
That's exactly right, and that's where we got all of our information from. That's how we knew. That's how we knew Ewoks were called Ewoks. They didn't say it in the movie.
Right? Yeah. Also true.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's it. Kenner is canon, as far as I'm concerned.
I'm down with that. So.
All right. You want to move on? We have some Marvel stuff to go over.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the.
All right, so we got some Marvel stuff coming up. What do we got up here first?
Oh wait, I gotta hang on. Technical difficulty. User error. There we go.
There we go. Marvel. So, we have What If? So we got What If this week. Now we had talked about it previously about this was coming up.
Yes.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So, talked about that, and this past week we got the first premiere, and actually tomorrow will be the second.
Tomorrow. Right, tomorrow's
Tuesday night. So tomorrow we get right. So, what did you think? So we got the first episode, and it was Captain Carter. What did you think of it?
I really liked it. I thought it was really cool. We all sat around. My family sat around, watched it the other night. I really liked it. It's not quite what I was expecting it to be, which isn't a bad thing, right? Like I was expecting it to be more. It's more like. Okay, I thought at first they were just going to swap out characters, it was just. Well, I mean, I guess it would be silly to do the exact same story with Peggy Carter instead of Steve Rogers, but I kind of like that it's really turns into a whole different story.
Yeah.
And I like spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, like Steve Rogers does show up in that show, but he shows up as what did they call him?
Hydra Smasher.
The Hydra Smasher, and he's basically in the first. Yeah, he's in the first gen Iron Man.
Yeah.
Suit, and I thought that was really cool. Like they were partners, Yeah,
I thought that was really neat. I really liked that because I didn't expect that either. I assumed. I don't know what I assumed, but I figured, like when Steve gets shot, I figured that was the end.
Right.
I thought that was that was the change, So, yeah. So now this week, tomorrow is going to be T'Challa is Star-Lord somehow.
Right.
So I'll be curious, right? Again, how does that happen? What and what are the ramifications of that and stuff? So it'll be neat to see. Like I'm watching the trailer now. There's Yondu and
Right.
oh, that's interesting. I think I just saw Adam Warlock. I think they just showed.
Oh, really?
Who has not made? I think that's who I just saw go by.
Okay.
Who hasn't his appearance yet in the main universe? So that's interesting. Anyway, yeah, I was really surprised by it. I really liked it.
Yeah, it's clever, and again, it's just fun. I mean, the stories and I like that they have the Watcher right at the beginning saying like this is, like almost like, okay, yeah, it's not part of the MCU, but these are all things that could have happened. Like I mean, I just thought it was really well done.
Well, I thought the setup was neat because especially after Loki, he's like, oh, one decision can branch off the timeline and create an reality. And they kind of, at first I thought it was a little heavy-handed, but the more I thought about it, the more I liked it, because I'm like, all right, cool, that you're making this make sense within the realm of the whole universe. And we just had Loki end, so everybody knows now that there's multiple timelines and all that stuff. Yeah, so it's pretty neat, I think. I do have to say, coming off of the Star Wars Visions conversation, I really like the animation too.
Yeah, I do.
It's not it's I don't know how to describe it. I mean, it's not 3D, but it's not 2D. There's definitely a depth to it. I mean, it's almost like sometimes it's almost like they traced over, like there's a name for that when they used to trace over. They would film an actor and then trace over, and I can't remember what that name was, but
okay, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes I think it might be something like that. I'm not quite sure what it is. I'm sure more will come out as time goes on, but yeah, I was really surprised at how much I enjoyed the animation, and like especially with Peggy Carter stuff. Some of those sequences were very like maybe lush, or you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. It's almost like I was sort of watching. I'm like, is it comic booky? It's not quite like from a comic book, but it's almost like similar to how they did Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I feel like, like there were.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
there is an element of that in there. Now that you're saying it, you're right. I'm not sure.
But I really liked it. I mean, what I've seen so far, I love. I'm totally into it. I'm looking forward to this week. I'm going to watch it tomorrow, probably. Yeah, it's really cool. I really like it.
One of the interesting things I read is that apparently it's heavily rumored that some of these characters, there's a possibility they may turn up in the MCU as people from the alternate timelines.
Oh, really?
So like Peggy Carter or Captain Carter with Haley Atwell, right? So she could technically put an appearance in as Captain Carter in the MCU.
Oh, that's cool.
Right?
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty neat. I like the where there's a sequence we're playing on YouTube right now for it's when she's fighting the Nazis and flips the car over her head.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this sequence. And what's interesting about this episode in particular is I saw some people online complaining. They're like, "Oh, she seems too strong, like stronger than Steve Rogers." But apparently, because of what went down, she got all 3 vials of the serum, where I guess Steve only got 2 or something like that.
Oh, really? Okay.
I never picked up on that until somebody said it, and I'm like, "Oh, well, no wonder she seems like she might be stronger because she got 3 vials."
Yeah. Okay.
And plus, it's animation too, so things flow better. It's
right.
To fling somebody in dramatically in animation is much different than flinging them in in real life.
Right. I really liked spoiler alert at the end of this episode. So it does, like, they try to loosely follow. I mean, the story's not the same, right, as what we saw in Captain America: The First Avenger, but it's almost like there's there's a progression that needs to be followed. And so at the end, they, Steve and Captain Carter have to be separated because that's sort of how things work, right? So I was wondering how that I wondered how that would be, like how I was like, I didn't think they were going to end up together at the end. I was curious how it was going to end up. And what's really cool is she gets like pushed into, like there's something that happens at the end, and she kind of gets pushed into what would you say, like a
dimensional rift,
right? Like a rift, and at the end, she gets pulled out of that rift by Nick Fury when he's playing with the Tesseract.
Yeah,
at the beginning of Avengers.
Right.
Which I was like, oh, that's really cool. And she comes out and she's like, I'm looking for Steve. Like, I have to give him a dance lesson or something like that. I thought that was really cool how they kept that idea of, I owe her a dance, which was something that kept coming up over and over for Steve Rogers. And it was cool how they kept that theme,
Yeah, I really like that too. I thought that was neat.
Yeah.
They really just reversed roles for the thing, but it was neat, and I really liked how the lack of a better word, the tentacle monster at the end or whatever that was. That's really kind of reminded me of like the Nazis, and they were always messing. And this is a lot of Indiana Jones influence, but they're not always messing with the occult, and that stuff. So that all fit in perfectly to me. I'm like, this is fantastic. I really like that. And then to have that be where she, instead of being frozen in ice, she was just wherever she was fighting monsters for all that time.
Yeah.
Even to her, it may not have been that long at all.
Right.
Yeah. But that was really good.
It was cool because like after we finished watching it, my son's like, it's so interesting to think about this universe now because like, Bucky doesn't lose his arm, and he doesn't get captured by the Nazis, and they don't test him. So he's like, well, what would the world be like without the Winter Soldier, right? Like there's no Winter Soldier in this universe now. And I was like, oh, that's really, it's interesting to think about,
Right. He wasn't around to do all those evil deeds that he did over the years.
Right. Like, is Howard Stark still alive?
Right, yeah. Interesting. Yeah. That could be really fun to play with. I think I read somewhere that I can't remember if I don't think they've confirmed a season 2, but for some reason I think if there is a season 2, they're going to do another episode with Peggy Carter.
Okay.
I think I read that somewhere, but I can't remember if that's 100% legitimate or if that was somebody, theorizing.
Right.
But I'd be down for it. I really like that episode, so I'd be down for seeing her again.
Yeah, it was. I really enjoyed it. I hope they, and I'm looking forward to it tomorrow. Definitely.
Yeah, because I think that would even open up even more so. Because I feel like Captain America was pretty iconic, like the story beats and all that. But once Guardians and you throw Black Panther in there, it's gonna who knows what's gonna happen,
Right. So good stuff.
Good. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. What else did we have for Marvel this week?
I think we want to talk about what's next. I think. Wait.
Oh.
User error. There we go.
Right.
There was some new. I don't think there's much to say here, but there was some new Shang Chi stuff.
Right.
Or is it? Am I pronouncing it right? What are you saying?
In the trailer they said it's. We were saying.
I'm saying Shang Chi. That's what I've been saying from the beginning.
I think it's Shang Chi.
Okay.
I think that's how they're saying it. I think you say it like there's an H in there somewhere, like Shang Chi.
Okay.
But, yeah. We'll see.
See
how I end up saying it.
But this is right around the corner. Like I didn't realize how close this is. September 3rd.
August has gone by in like a blink. So I was so surprised. And we're playing all the various trailers that they've released. Kind of, they're all stitched together, and we're playing them. And I have to say, I know after the first trailer, I was very unimpressed. And then
Yeah.
after watching all of them back to back, I've gotten more interested. I can't say I'm super excited for the movie yet, but I'm more interested than I was. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the very first trailer really didn't give you much of the story. It was a lot of like shots of him and some fighting and martial arts and stuff like that, but there wasn't a whole lot of story. And not that we've gotten a whole lot of story since, but like we at least have an idea of how it's going to flow, I think.
Yes.
So
I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, the first one it was just martial arts, whereas now these other trailers, like you're seeing whatever the 10 Rings are doing, they're magic of some sort, and you're getting a better idea, it's more than just martial arts,
Right. You get an idea of the characters and how they're, and I've actually read, I think I mentioned before, I have Marvel Unlimited. I signed up for that again. And this was one of the reasons why, because I was like, well, let me, I'm going to review Shang Chi, whatever it is, comics, just to kind of familiarize myself with the character, because I didn't know anything about him. I think that helps, so I have some idea of what the character is. I didn't read a whole lot, but I maybe read 10 or so, just to kind of get an idea of what the character's like. And I guess he's been rebooted recently, or not long ago.
He was around in the 70s, and I think he was very stereotypical, I guess would be the best way. And I'm not sure about the reboot. I remember reading some more recent Avengers comics where he made an appearance, and they seemed to strip away a lot of the stereotypical elements. I mean, in the 70s, that's how it was. And I think a lot of the martial arts, and I think all that was just very stereotypical. I mean, think back to the old, not for anything, I mean, think back to the old Super Friends. They thought they were doing the right thing and bringing in like all the ethnic Super Friends, and then you look at those today and you're like, oh my, this is terrible.
Yeah, right.
And I mean, I think it was one of those things like, oh, let's do a martial arts book, and we'll make the guy, we'll make him Asian. That makes sense. And then and then you read them now and you're like, ooh,
yeah. Yeah,
I think. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the series I read was like a short series, and it was relatively recent. And I know as I was reading it, I was kind of like, yeah, I think this is there's probably going to be a lot of this in the movie, I think.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Yeah.
So we'll see. But I mean, I'm more interested in the like I like reading a little bit about the character, so I have some idea of what they're all about before I see the movie.
Yeah. And right, I mean, this is fun going in because it's like I'm curious to see how they make what essentially as a martial artist, how they make him breathe a lot of life into it. Make it unique for the Marvel universe. So, and one of the things I think I may have said this before, but I think and I kind of hope that this does for Asian culture what Black Panther did for Black or African American, but that culture, because like that, in Black Panther, the entire movie was Black, and it was great, and it was awesome. And I mean, representation's important, and all that stuff. But I mean, even as a white guy watching, I'm like, this is really cool, kind of to see that with the Asian stuff. I think it'll be cool. I'm looking forward to it. I think this is going to be really interesting, and we do even get and I'm trying to find where it was, but we get don't we get a shot of what's the character's name that was in the original Hulk? The Abomination.
The Abomination. Spoiler alert. Is that a spoiler alert? I don't know what happened there.
I'm not sure either. There's Chris Hemsworth. I'm not sure.
That's not what I intended to do.
What do you call it? Yeah, the Abomination was the bad guy in the Incredible Hulk movie, and he makes an appearance in this as well. So
it's like I can't find it right now, but it was like when he's in the ring.
He's like in a fight cage or something.
He's in a fight cage and he's fighting Abomination, which I thought was
And apparently the Abomination has mutated or changed his appearance slightly, so he looks much more like the comic book version than he did in the Incredible Hulk movie. like in the comics, he's got these like fin things on the side of his head, and they didn't have them in the movie, and now he does. And I know people. I think it was just today I saw people were excited about that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't really have a whole lot more to say about this. I mean, I'm buying a ticket, and I'm going to go see it. And this is, and we're actually going to talk about this in a couple of minutes. But this one is, you have to see this one in the theater, right? Like they're not doing a dual release.
Yeah.
On Disney Plus, at least at the moment. There's Abomination. Yeah. So this is it's coming out September 3rd, and it's going to be theater only.
Yeah. Yeah, because that does take us into the next thing we were going to talk about.
Yeah.
With Black Widow and everything that's kind of going on with that. I mean, I don't know. What do you think about? What do you think about it? I mean, we'll talk about her lawsuit and all that in a minute. But what do you think about? Like, I mean, the releasing in the theater versus the digital. I mean,
I think that's something that they've been trying to prevent. That studios have been trying to prevent from happening for a long time, and then COVID was like, it's something. I think it's something that everybody wanted to do.
Yeah.
But the studios prevented them from doing it, right? Studios and actors. Because the reality is, and we'll talk about it with her lawsuit, they make more money at the box office, right? Like they get they get a piece of that box office, right? So, I don't know how streaming works. Like, because I mean, you can't just, like Black Widow, you couldn't just watch it. You had to pay the $30 to what, like an additional $30 on top of your whatever you're paying monthly to watch that film. So I don't know why it's different.
Right. I mean, in Black Widow's case and Scarlett Johansson's case, I'm guessing she wasn't guaranteed a cut of that Premier Access money.
Right.
Right. Whereas going forward, you would assume that it would just be like, look, I get, every ticket that's sold, I get $1. Every Premier Access, I get 50 cents or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm confused unless because, technically, you can $30 and you could have 100 people over to watch the movie.
Right.
Figuring they're losing money that way.
Well, it's that. And like we went to see, what did we get? So we saw Jungle Cruise recently, and we saw Black Widow in the theater,
right?
Also, so I think I spent, for four tickets, I think I spent more money than, like, it's more expensive to go to the theater than it would be to just get it on Disney Plus and pay the extra $30, right?
Right.
Not a lot more. I think it was like maybe 45. My daughter's still a child, so we're paying $1 less for her ticket, So
now it's interesting, because
you do make. I think you probably make more money at the theater. I think they, right. At least but like, you also have to, like, I think when they release something in the theater, you have to pay the theater, like the studio has to pay the theater to have the movie shown.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Right. So there's a cost. There's a cost to Disney to show that theater to show that movie in a theater, and I think they, that's probably a cost that, if they do it simultaneously. Well, I don't know. Yeah, because they're not showing it on as many screens, probably.
Probably not. I mean, once everything shakes out, it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I don't know.
I don't know how it all works.
I know for Black Widow, we had planned to see it in the theater, and it didn't work out. So we said, you know what, we'll do Premier Access. So we sat here the one night, and there's 4 of us. 3 of us watched it. My daughter actually went and saw it in the theater the next night with her friends.
Okay.
But then, since the Premier Access, my brother-in-law came over. We watched it again, and my other daughter, who saw it in the theater, rewatched it with us. So there's 3 of us that watched it again.
Okay.
And last weekend, my niece was here, and she watched it for the first time, but with my 2 daughters. So, like, I got my money's worth out of the movie.
Right.
And I started thinking about it. I'm like, well, geez, if everybody that has watched this movie had paid for a ticket, including me multiple times at this point, kind of think I'm like, well, maybe that's where maybe that's where the
Right.
losses come from. Maybe that's
Maybe.
what it was about,
Yeah.
But once it's in your home, baby, you know what I mean? It's there. So,
Yeah.
but I don't, I don't know. But now in this particular case with Scarlett Johansson, this seems to be getting a little bit ugly.
Well, yeah, and this is the thing and this is kind of why I wanted to talk about this. Like, because I think what worries me about this is this. Like, I think Disney has handled this very poorly.
Yeah.
Right. And my fear is that, like, so, and there's a lot going on here. So you have the new Disney CEO, who's Bob Chapek, right? Chapek but also Bob Iger, who has been the Disney CEO for the last, I forget how many years,
right?
Still hasn't left. Like, he's not leaving until the end of the year, right? So there's a bit of and you know how this stuff goes. These guys all have big egos, and so there's like a rift between those two, and apparently what's happened is that Chapek decided he's going to assert his authority, and this was the hill he was going to die on, right? Mm-hmm. Was this Black Widow thing. And, and I think he made a huge mistake. I mean, because what happened, because in addition to the fact that he made Scarlett Johansson pretty angry, the release date was also a problem, because everybody was trying to convince them to push the release date off, because I guess part of the reason is because it's a big holiday, or I think China is celebrating like their some kind of national holiday or something like that, or some anniversary, something like that. It's a big deal over there.
Right.
And so this didn't get released in China for that reason, right? And China is a huge market for films now. I mean, you see it all the time, because like all of a sudden they're starting to add, they add like locations, Chinese locations in, yes, and like that kind of thing. And that's part of the reason, because it's that market is huge for films. So in releasing this on the day that they released it, they cut that market out, and apparently that made Kevin Feige was really angry about it. Bob Iger was really angry about it, but Scarlett Johansson was clearly very angry about it, because this all cuts in on, and then to add insult to injury, they said, well, we're going to release it on Disney Plus at the same time. And this was a lot, by whether this is all true or not, I don't know, but this is, by all accounts, this was Chapek's decision, right? Okay. Like, this is what he wanted to do, and this was going to be his first big, like, he's going to assert control of the company, and that was going to be his thing. And by all accounts, it's been like a disaster, because this PR thing with Scarlett Johansson, they came out. I mean, did you see the response?
Yes.
It was really, really tone deaf, and it was like, well, Scarlett Johansson's, it's unfortunate because of the they're not taking into account the pandemic, right? And then they make that announcement, and then the following week they release those prices for the Galactic Star Cruiser, right? And it's like, wow, right. But I know the pandemic's been really bad, but you could shell out $6,000 to go stay at our hotel for 2 days, right? I mean, it's just stuff like that. It's been really, really, the response has been really tone deaf.
Yeah.
And apparently Scarlett Johansson was, in addition to the Black Widow movie, she was going to star in and produce a film based on Tower of Terror.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
That was going to be a thing, so now that relationship is completely broken down. They've severed ties with her. So that maybe the project goes forward, but it's going forward without Scarlett Johansson,
the actress and the producer, apparently.
Right. You know, it may go forward, but it's not going to go forward with her. Which, and you know, she's certainly talented. I mean, Scarlett Johansson is a good actress. I mean, she's very talented, right?
And
So
she's
that's
a
unfortunate.
big name. I mean, you know, like if you know, you want her in your movie. I mean,
Right.
she's sought after, right?
Right. So that's a problem. And what my fear is that this, you know, it's not like this is taking place in a bubble. I mean, all of these actors and actresses are watching how Disney is handling this. You know, Kevin Feige's watching how they, and from what I've read, Kevin Feige's really unhappy.
Yeah.
And maybe you could afford to lose Scarlett Johansson in a Tower of Terror movie. If they lose Kevin Feige, that's a disaster.
Oh,
that's a complete and utter disaster. You know, because he has shaped everything Marvel has become. You know,
right? He's
and
driving force behind all this.
You're right. And Bob Iger was very happy to just kind of, you know, hands off, let him manage, you know, Marvel. And I worry about, are we going to lose? Is Disney going to lose talent for these Marvel movies because they saw what happened to Scarlett Johansson?
Right.
Is Kevin Feige going to be like, well, you know what? Maybe I need to start looking at other options, like that kind of thing. Because like they flat out, like Kevin Feige was flat out against releasing this on that date, and they just completely ignored his advice.
Yeah.
And
why would you do that when the man has been so successful with everything?
Right.
You know.
So it's, I think this could, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Now, apparently, like in the last few days, Chapek has come out and said, well, look, there's no rift between Bob Iger and I. You know, he was totally on board with all this decision making. But like Iger's people are saying, you know, it's like paraphrasing, but they're basically saying, they talked to one of his people,
right.
and that person was like, you know, it's amateur hour over there.
I heard that.
You know, and that's it's a mess. So I don't know. I mean, I will be honest. I am not a Bob Chapek fan. I think he's the wrong guy to lead the company. I thought that from the moment they announced him.
Interesting.
He came from like merchandising and like parks and merchandise kind of guy. So he's a dollars and cents guy. He's not a creative. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And Disney's always been led by a creative.
I feel like Iger. I don't know how creative per se Iger was, but I feel like he was savvy enough to get out of the way.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I don't know how much input he had into a lot of the creative decisions.
Right.
You know, just from listening to him, I think he knew like, okay, this I'm going to step aside here, you know, and allow these guys to work. You know?
Right. Like I think he may not have been creative in himself. I think he was smart enough to know who was, and he was, you know, like Kevin Feige knew what he was doing. He let him do his thing, you know?
Right. Yeah. He's the one that he restructured everything to give him even more power because he was obviously knew what he was doing. You know?
Right. And, you know, so, you know, certainly Walt Disney was creative.
Mm-hmm.
Bob Eisner Michael Eisner.
Yeah.
Michael Eisner was, say what you will about him, and he sort of imploded at the end, but he, you know, Disney, he created Disney as it is now, right? Like we wouldn't have Hollywood Studios or Animal Kingdom or, you know, I mean, well, he didn't do Epcot, but like, you know, like the water parks, the resorts, you know, all that was done under Michael Eisner. You know, it you know, and I just don't think, like, and you could tell, like, you could see that Chapek's uncomfortable in the spotlight. I mean, you could just tell, like, when he does interviews and stuff like that, he's not, you know, like Eisner was a natural at that kind of stuff. Like he I think he did. He was on TV, like Walt.
Yeah, for Wonderful World of Disney.
Right, for Wonderful World of Disney. Now Iger didn't do that, but he was, you know, Iger was always out. Like you know, he was always like the spokesman for the company.
Yeah.
And Chapek is just not that guy. You know, he's just not.
That's interesting.
And I don't know. I don't know that if he's going to be like, if he leaves, I'm not going to be upset about it. I just don't think he's the right guy.
You think Iger's really leaving?
I think I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
I think if Iger, I think Iger would stay forever.
Right.
You know, I mean, there's talk that he has his own ambitions. There's talk that he wants to run for president.
Right.
I don't know if I buy that. I mean, I could see him wanting to be. I think he's got a real tight relationship with China.
Yeah, right, because of all the right.
Because of the Disney World, you know, like he worked with them very closely when they opened Disneyland over there, or Disney, whatever it is, Tokyo. No, it's Shanghai. Yeah.
Okay.
And so he's real tight with them. So I could see him like being an ambassador or something.
Yeah.
You know, so apparently he's got, but like, I don't know that I feel like he doesn't want to leave.
Right.
You know,
it's hard. I mean, you know, he's built everything up, and you know, everything's so good, and just to be like hand it over and be like, here, you know, like it's gotta be hard to do, especially if you're not 100% comfortable with your replacement. Even though I mean, sounds like, I mean, he picked him, but you know.
Well, I think the board, it was sort of, and the thing was, it was like Chapek ended up being, like, he wasn't even, there were two guys in line ahead of Chapek.
Oh.
And I can't, for the life of me, I can't remember their names. And it was sort of like, it was going to be one of them.
Okay.
Right. And then Iger decided not to retire because they did the Fox News, or they did the Fox acquisition. Right. And he was like, well, I'm going to stick around for a little while longer to make sure. I think the board asked him to stay to kind of shepherd that through.
Right.
And in that time, the board picked who his replacement would be, right? And it was one of the guys. Yeah. So the other guy was angry it wasn't him, and he left, right? And then apparently the board didn't show the guy they did pick enough confidence, so then he left.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Right. So then Chapek was sort of what was left, right? and I think, and that's kind of like how he got it. I mean, it's just very, and either of the other two guys whose name I can't remember would have been a better, choice.
Oh, geez.
So it's, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if this is, I mean, it's also the first, I mean, you know, running Disney's not easy, right? It's a whole, you've got theme parks, you've got television stations, you've got films, you've got, you know, I mean, they're in all these different businesses, you know?
Right.
So, you know, maybe he's just trying to get his feet under him. I feel like he's not the right guy.
Right. Well, especially coming from, like, I'm sure, I mean, no matter what, I'm sure they're all money guys, but
yeah,
if, you know, you're used to being a nickel and dime money guy,
right,
versus the big picture money guy, you know, I'm sure that has a lot to do with it too.
Right.
You know?
And fairly or unfairly, Chapek's getting a lot of the blame for, I mean, everything. And I will say, like, I mean, we're Disney fans. We go to Disney every year. We have for a long time now. And, you know, it's a big deal for us. We're big Disney people. But I will say, in the last, you know, granted, we just went through a pandemic and all the parks were closed, and it was, you know, that was a whole, you know, they lost a lot of money during the pandemic, you know, because you know, the theaters were closed, the parks were closed, you know, they had a lot of problems. But even before the pandemic, you could see they started ramping up like costs. Mm-hmm. Like the price to go has really skyrocketed. And now they're doing that. I think we talked about it on the show last time, this Fast Pass thing.
Yeah, right.
Where, you know, Fast Pass as long as it's been around has sort of been free, right? Right. And now all of a sudden they're going to start charging for it. And so fairly or unfairly, Chapek's getting a lot of the blame for that stuff, for costs going up. And I do think that's the kind of guy he is, right? Like, well, we should charge for all this.
Mhm.
And so I don't know. It's we'll see how it all plays out. But I just thought it was interesting. We should have talked about it because what's going on. I wonder what's happening with Black Widow, if it's going to have, if we're going to see an impact of what's happening further down the line.
Ramifications, yeah.
Right.
Well, you know that I guess Chapek said something about Shang Chi, like it's an experiment or something like that.
Yes.
Because they're not going to put it on Disney Plus.
Right.
And the main actor, whose name I can't remember, but he said something like, he's like, well, basically he's like, we're not an experiment. He goes, we're the underdogs, and he tried to say something like,
right.
I don't know. I guess the word experiment was offensive to him, and he kind of went off of this Twitter rant about it, and I'm just like, oh, here we go now, like I don't know.
He's not savvy when it comes. He's not a media savvy guy. Like I was reading his response, like people were asking him about all the rumors that he and Iger are in this like tiff, and and he responded to the Black Widow thing, and just the way he talks, like he's like, we're going to do what's best for our constituents, and I'm kind of like, we're here, we're customers, we're not, this isn't a political, like, what I'm saying, like a constituent is, I mean, I guess it's not improper, but the usage, but it's just an odd way to put it.
Maybe instead of customers. I mean, I'm not sure what, like constituents. That's very odd.
It's an odd way to put it. And that's what I'm talking about. Like, he's just not savvy when it comes to this stuff,
Right.
And I think it's going to be a problem, and I think a lot of people are looking at what he's done here with Black Widow, and they're like, hey, like, am I going to go? Do I want to go and work for this company? Are they going to turn around and do something like this to me, and then trash me in the media, right? Because they sort of did.
I feel like they really were not nice to Scarlett Johansson,
right?
At the end of the day, right? I mean, you can, she already got her 20 million. Well, that's fine, but that wasn't the agreement,
right?
And so that's we'll
see. We'll.
Okay, I wonder if Feige would ever, like, he knows how to make up movies and all that stuff. I wonder, like, I don't know how much of a businessman. I don't know if he has the knowledge to run the entire organization. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I don't. I don't know.
I don't even know if that's an aspiration of his. I was just curious. When you look below, you're like, all right, well, who else could they bring up? But
there's a guy who's in charge of parks now, and his name's Josh D'Amaro, and he's sort of the guy that all the Disney fans love.
Oh, interesting.
Right, but he's not there yet, but I think that's the guy all the Disney fans want to run the company, and but like boards don't listen to fans. They do what's gonna get them the most return,
Right, but if he's Chapek's messing up Black Widow, which is Marvel, which is their top income right now, that's not going to be well. That's not going to go well, I imagine.
Right. So we'll see what happens. Yeah. But I just thought it was something to talk about, because I that's my fear, is I don't want what's happening here. Like, they get, Marvel people want to work for Marvel now, right? Yeah. People want to be in Marvel movies. All these top name actors want to be in Marvel movies, and I'd hate for that to change because of something stupid like this that could have been handled better.
Right. Yeah. Right. I'm not going to go work for them. Look what they did this Scarlett Johansson, ScarJo.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they work it out. I mean.
Yeah. So anyway, on that note, do we have anything else we want to talk about this week?
Yeah, I think that was it, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So I guess we'll wrap it up.
All right. Well, appreciate you hanging in there for us tonight and listening. We're recording this as well, and we have so you can follow us on YouTube. You can check us out there. But we're also on the traditional podcast. You can always listen to us on the podcast. Right. If you enjoy the show, we ask you to go out and leave us a review on iTunes. You can also give us a thumbs up if you're watching us on YouTube, that would be great. And follow us. And you can follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. We're at Geek Hangout Pod. And with that, we will talk to you next time. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Okay.
All right.
I think we went really long.
What's the
I don't know. All right, I'm going to start the recording now.
we got on at 8:30, but we probably didn't start until 9, 10, 11, 11:30. No.
We had that little where we were trying to figure out was are we that long?
I don't know. Your mic did start doing it again, but I let it go. I'm not sure what it is.
Oh, didn't stop recording yet.